African woman was forced to marry a poor fisherman. But on their wedding night, she discovers he's an Arab executive. She never wanted this marriage. Her dreams were filled with books, cities, and freedom, not with fishing nets and muddy shores. But tradition had other plans. Forced into marrying a man she barely knew, a silent fisherman with callous hands and eyes that revealed nothing, she accepted her fate with quiet resignation. That is, until the wedding night. When the door closed, the candles burned low, and he finally spoke, everything changed. What he revealed would not only shatter everything she believed, but ignite a journey that would transform her life forever. Who was this man truly? And why was a billionaire Arab executive pretending to be poor? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. The wind smelled of salt and old nets as Adana sat motionless on the edge of her sleeping mat, staring at the cracked wall of the clay house that now belonged to her. Outside, waves broke against the rocks with a rhythm that sounded like a curse, steady, inescapable. Her wedding veil, still damp from the ocean breeze, lay crumpled at her feet. She hadn't cried, not once, but her silence spoke of 1,000 tears unshed. She never imagined her life would come to this. 22 years old, daughter of a schoolteacher and the last girl in her village to avoid marriage, Adana had always held herself apart. She read books in English under the mango tree. She dreamed of city lights, scholarships, the taste of independence. But when her father fell gravely ill and debt swallowed their land, the elders whispered. And when the man they called Medu approached her family with a bride price wrapped in oil-stained bills and 2 goats, her mother said only one word: survive. Survive. That's what she'd been doing since the ceremony ended. The village square had erupted with drums, laughter, and roasted fish. She had stood still as the elders painted her face, feeling like a sacrifice more than a bride. Medu had arrived at sunset, wearing a faded white tunic and sandals made from recycled tires. He said little. His skin was darkened by the sun, his beard unkempt. Everyone called him the Silent One. They said he lived by the coast, fishing alone, never speaking unless spoken to. But he wasn't unkind. He met her eyes once, and nodded as if to say, "This is not your fault either." Now, the moon had risen, casting silver light into their single-room home. The bed was covered with a thin white sheet. A candle flickered on a wooden crate, its flame bowing to the breeze. Medu stood at the doorway, tall and motionless, his shoulders outlined in shadow. He had removed his shoes. He did not move toward her. He said nothing. Adana could barely breathe. Her voice, when it came, was brittle. "Do you want me to lie down?" He shook his head slowly. "Not yet." His voice surprised her, deep calm, with an accent she couldn't quite place. He reached for a flask of water, took a sip, then offered it to her. She accepted it out of instinct, drinking only enough to wet her lips. His eyes were watching her. Not hungrily, not angrily, but intensely. "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly. She blinked. "Why would you?" "Because," he said, placing the flask down, "you think you married a man who sees you as property. But that's not who I am." Adana stared at him, confused. "Who are you, then?" There was a long pause. He walked over to the crate, pulled something from a hidden compartment beneath it, a small, leather-bound folder. She couldn't see what was inside. He turned the candle so its light spilled across the pages. "I need to tell you the truth," he said, "but you must promise not to scream." Adana's heart hammered in her chest. "Are you dangerous?" "No," he said, "but I am not who they told you I was. I never have been." He opened the folder, revealing something that didn't belong in this room: a passport with gold embossing, a banking license, a photo ID from a company she had seen only once before, years ago, in a documentary about rising Arab fortunes in West Africa. It was written in Arabic and English. Zain Al Nadir, Chairman and CEO, Al Nadir Maritime Investments, Doha, net worth estimated $2.3 billion. Adana's mouth went dry. She looked at the picture, and now she saw it. The same dark eyes, the same sharp jawline, though shaved clean in the photo. He looked younger, more refined, but undeniably the same man standing barefoot in front of her now. Her voice cracked. "This is a joke." "It isn't." She stepped back. "Why are you here? Why this? Why pretend to be a poor fisherman?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. For a moment, he looked almost embarrassed. "Because I needed to disappear. I needed to know who I was without the world telling me." Her head spun. "So you let them sell me to you?" "I never meant for that to happen," he said quickly. "I came to this village under an alias. I wanted peace, to be among people who had no idea who I was. I thought I'd just fish and live simply. But then I saw you." Her breath caught. "You were reading under the tree," he continued, "and I thought, this girl doesn't belong here. She's already halfway out. And when I heard about your father's debt, the whispers about you being offered off like a burden, I panicked." She stared at him. "I offered to marry you because I couldn't bear the thought of someone else doing it for the wrong reasons. I knew I could protect you, even if you hated me." Adana shook her head, overwhelmed. "Why wouldn't you just tell me the truth?" "Because the truth ruins everything," he said, voice low. "I've learned that too many times. People either worship your money or fear it. I wanted someone who would look me in the eye without calculating what they could gain." Silence wrapped around them like a heavy curtain. She didn't know what to feel. Anger, awe, disbelief. A man worth billions pretending to be a nobody, marrying her not for love but to save her? Was that kindness or cruelty? Her voice trembled. "So what now?" "That's up to you," he said. "If you want to leave tomorrow, I'll give you everything. A plane ticket, a bank card, a place to stay in the city. You'll never have to see me again. And if I stay," his eyes softened, "then I will tell you everything. Every truth. Every mistake. And maybe, only if you want, we can begin again. Not as strangers, but as equals." The candle flickered violently, as if reacting to the weight of his words. Adana stood still. For the first time, she noticed how clean his hands were beneath the stage dirt, how straight his back was, how his eyes never shifted or dodged hers. He had played the part well. Too well. And yet, somewhere deep inside her, beneath the shock, the fear, the betrayal, a small voice whispered, "He didn't buy you. He saved you." But did that make it right? She turned toward the window, watching the dark waves crash below. Somewhere out there was a different version of her life, the one she thought at end of the day the veil was tied. Maybe it was only just beginning. She took a breath and turned back toward him. "What else are you hiding, Zane?" He smiled the first time, a real smile. "That," he said gently, "will take more than one night to explain." And in that moment, something shifted. The girl who once felt like a prisoner in her own wedding now held the power to choose. And she wasn't walking away yet. Adana didn't sleep that night. Even after Zane extinguished the candle, curled himself on a mat across the room, and said softly, "You don't owe me anything." Her mind churned. She stared at the wooden ceiling above their bed, her fingers tracing invisible patterns across the thin sheet. What did it mean to discover that your husband wasn't who the world thought, and neither was your marriage? At dawn, when the first rooster crowed and the waves began their endless rhythm again, she finally rose. He was already outside, standing barefoot at the water's edge, holding a fishing net in one hand, gazing toward the horizon like a man waiting for something to return. She watched from the doorway, arms folded. This was the same man who had paid her bride price with stained cash, yet who owned a maritime empire spanning continents. It didn't make sense, and yet somehow it did. She joined him in silence, her feet sinking slightly into the damp sand. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why are you still pretending?" Zane looked at her. "Because I'm not ready to stop." She frowned. "So this is your game?" "No, it's my refuge." He looked back out at the water. "Out there, everything is transaction. Here, I can breathe." "But you lied to me," she said, arms tightening. "You let me think I was being sold to a poor man, that I would live in this hut forever." "I never said I was poor," he replied quietly. "I just didn't say I wasn't." She turned to face him fully. "That's not a clever excuse, Zane." That's betrayal. He met her eyes then. You're right, and I won't ask you to forgive me. But I need you to understand this wasn't about control. It was about trying to belong somewhere, without my name deciding everything. She looked down at his hands, rough from fishing, but she now saw the truth in them. Callous, yes, but his nails were too neatly trimmed, his posture too trained. Even the way he tied his net revealed discipline beyond a fisherman's life. How long have you been here? She asked. 6 months, he said. Since the board voted to remove me as CEO for mental health leave. They said I was unstable. I walked out of my penthouse in Doha and kept driving. No guards, no jets, just silence. Adana stepped back slightly, absorbing the weight of that confession. The world knew Zain al-Nadir as a brilliant, if ruthless, shipping magnate. But the man before her looked hollowed out, not dangerous, but deeply tired. Why me? She asked. He hesitated. Because you look like someone who'd survived something too. You walked like you were holding pieces of yourself together. That struck her. She opened her mouth to respond, but didn't. Instead, she turned and walked back to the house. She needed space, time, distance from this madness. But village life did not pause. By mid-morning, the women had begun to visit. They came in pairs, bearing dried fish and local gossip wrapped in banana leaves. They praised her beauty, her composure, her quiet obedience. They asked when the baby would come. She smiled politely, gave no answers, and resisted the urge to scream. They didn't know the truth. No one did. Later, she found Zain crouched by the cooking fire, preparing cassava. He offered her a small bowl without speaking. She accepted it and sat beside him, neither of them saying a word. It was the first peace of the day. That night, she lay on the bed again alone. Zain didn't cross the room. He respected the line she had drawn. But just before the candle burned out, his voice came across the dark. I'll tell you everything, if you want. Adana turned her head. Then start with your mother. He chuckled softly. You don't waste time. No, she said. I've already lost enough. He took a breath. My mother was Sudanese. A teacher like yours. She raised me alone after my father left her. He was Qatari. Royal blood, old money. But I was always a reminder of his shame, the African child he left behind. Adana's eyes stayed on the ceiling. She died when I was 16, Zain continued. Cancer. I was taken in by my uncle's family in Doha. They saw me as a charity case, but I worked. I built my own company by 25. I never took a cent from them. But no matter how many billions I made, they still looked at me like the outsider, the black sheep. Adana's voice was soft. So you came here to stop being Zain al-Nadir? Yes. And you married me to punish them? No, he said firmly. I married you because I saw your strength. I didn't want to own it. I wanted to protect it. There was silence again. But this time, it didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a beginning. The days passed slowly. Zain never crossed the line she had drawn. He slept on the floor. He cooked. He fished. He repaired the roof with his own hands when the rains came. And every night, they talked, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. He told her about boardroom betrayals, the pressure of appearances, the loneliness of being a man everyone feared but no one knew. She told him about her father's stories, her dreams of becoming a teacher, her guilt for not fighting harder to escape this life. Bit by bit, the wall between them began to shift. One afternoon, a storm swept across the village, toppling trees and flooding several homes. Adana found herself clinging to Zain's hand as they ran through waist-high water to help their neighbors. He lifted a child onto his shoulders. He gave away their last bag of rice. When it was over, she stood soaked and shivering beside him and whispered, "Thank you." He only nodded. That night, she didn't tell him to sleep on the floor. He didn't touch her. He didn't try. But they slept side by side, breathing in the same rhythm. And in the stillness of midnight, she whispered a question into the darkness. If you're still running from your life, will you run again? He turned his head slowly. No, he said. Not if you ask me to stay. She nodded once, then turned back to the ceiling. She didn't say it yet, not out loud, but a part of her already knew. This was no longer just survival. This was the start of something real. Adana's fingers moved slowly over the fabric of the dress she was folding, pausing as she felt the worn threads along the hem. The sun outside painted golden stripes through the slatted windows, and the air was thick with the smell of rain-dampened wood and salt. Every morning, she had performed the same chores, sweeping, washing, preparing herbs. But this morning, her hands moved differently. There was softness in her rhythm. She caught herself humming once. Something inside her was changing. Zane had gone out early, as he did most days. But now, when he left for the ocean, she didn't feel abandoned. She found herself waiting for the sound of his sandals at the door. She caught herself thinking about the way he always carved the yams smaller on her plate, because she ate slower than he did. How he always left the candle on until she fell asleep first. This wasn't the life she had dreamed of. No cities, no scholarships, no big classrooms with maps on the walls. But there was something else now. Something steady. Real. She was beginning to trust him. But trust, she knew, was fragile. That afternoon, while returning from the market with a woven basket on her hip, she heard them. The whispers. 2 women stood near the well, speaking low, but not low enough. She's getting too comfortable. Look how she walks now, like she owns a coast. She doesn't even try to be humble. She thinks her marriage makes her better than us. They say he doesn't touch her, that he's not a real man. Adana kept walking, her face neutral, but her jaw tight. When she entered the house, she dropped the basket a little too loudly. Zane looked up from the floor, where he was mending a broken sandal strap. "Bad day?" he asked gently. She stared at him, her voice sharper than she intended. "Do you know what they say about me?" He stood up slowly. "Probably more than they should. That I'm proud. That I'm not really married. That you're less of a man because we don't." She stopped herself, cheeks burning. Zane walked to the window, drawing the thin curtain aside. "This village has never seen a marriage like ours. It scares them. They think you're weak." He turned back to her. "Do you?" "No," she said quickly. "But I think I'm tired of hiding." He stepped closer. "We don't have to hide. But I won't use you to prove anything to anyone." Her chest ached from the weight of it all. From being sold. From falling for a man wrapped in secrets. From trying to find herself in a world that never asked what she wanted. She looked up at him, the man with the gentle hands and broken sandals and billion-dollar eyes. "I don't want to be your secret anymore," she whispered. "You never were," he said. She took a breath. "Then tell me who Zane al-Nadir really is. Outside the folder, outside the money. Show me." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked toward the old trunk beside the bed and retrieved something she had never seen before, a carved wooden box. He opened it slowly and handed her a single photo. It was a child, maybe 10 years old, barefoot in a crowded classroom. The boy was smiling shyly at the camera, a textbook open in front of him. His eyes were wide with wonder, with hunger for knowledge. "That's me," Zane said, "before I learned that the world only respects what it fears." Adana held the photo gently. "You look like someone who still believed in people." "I did, until people took everything from me." His voice dropped. "I started building walls so early, I forgot there was a boy behind them." She didn't return the photo. She kept holding it. Later that evening, as they prepared dinner together, she peeling plantains, he stirring stew. There was a knock on the door, a knock that didn't belong. Zane's hand froze. Adana opened the door carefully. A man stood outside in a pristine beige suit, shoes polished, hair slicked back. He did not belong to this village. His eyes scanned Adana as if she were a misplaced item on a shelf. "Zane," the man said, voice clipped, "we need to talk." Adana stepped aside slowly. Zane approached with a tight jaw. "Adil," he said, not warmly. "I've looked everywhere for you," the man replied. "You disappear without word, and the board is in chaos. I told them to handle it without me. They can't. Contracts are crumbling. Rivals are circling. And your name, Zane, they're whispering that you've gone mad. that you're hiding in villages pretending to be poor. Zayn didn't flinch. Maybe I am. Adil's eyes narrowed. You have a responsibility. You build an empire that depends on you. You can't just vanish and shack up with... He stopped, glancing at Adana again. Zayn's voice turned ice cold. Finish that sentence, and I'll forget you were ever my friend. Adil clenched his jaw. We're flying out tonight. Your jet is waiting in Dakar. 1 hour. He turned and walked away without waiting for a reply. The door closed. Adana looked at Zayn. You have a jet? He half smiled. It's not as impressive when it comes with this kind of baggage. What will you do? He met her eyes. What do you want me to do? She blinked. Why does it matter what I want? Because I stopped making decisions alone the day I married you. The words hit her like a wave. She sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. If you go, will you come back? I don't want to leave at all. But if you don't, she said quietly, you'll lose everything you built. He sat beside her. I'm starting to believe I built the wrong life. They sat in silence again. But this time, she reached for his hand. And for the first time, Zayn's fingers closed around hers. Not as strangers, not as a savior and saved, but as two people trying to find their truth in a world full of lies. Outside, the waves continued. But inside, something had shifted. Not in words. Not yet, but in the way their eyes began to speak. That night, the rain didn't come from the sky. It came from within. Zayn sat by the window, motionless, watching Adil's footsteps disappear down the muddy path that led out of the village. His mind, once fortified with the sharp instincts of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, now wandered in disarray. Behind him, Adana placed a shawl over her shoulders, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. Neither of them had spoken in 10 minutes. The silence was not cold. It was taut, stretched tight like a fishing line between two people waiting to feel which way the pull would go. Are you going to leave with him? She asked at last. Zayn turned slightly. Do you want me to? That's not an answer. He stood, walking slowly toward the fire pit, staring into the last embers. Adil wasn't wrong. I built something that matters. Thousands of workers, ships in 6 ports, people depending on me. I can't ignore that. So go, she said quickly. Go back to your empire. His eyes snapped to hers. Is that what you think I want? Adana crossed her arms, defensive. What am I supposed to think, Zayn? You're a man who vanishes from luxury into poverty, marries a stranger out of pity, and now pretends this is all real. Maybe this was just a long holiday. His face tightened. Don't do that. Don't turn this into a fantasy I crafted. I'm here because I couldn't breathe anywhere else. You were the first person who didn't look at me like a title or a dollar sign. She looked away. And now you'll disappear, like they all do. Is that what this is about? He asked. Your father? Her throat closed. He had never spoken about her father before. She wasn't ready. Zayn stepped closer. You think I'll leave because he did. Because that's what men do in your story. But I'm not him, Adana. I don't run from people. I only ran from myself. The room felt small, suffocating. You say that, she whispered, but you're still packing your bag. He looked at the satchel by the door, still unopened, and then back at her. I'm not packed. Not yet. But the knock came before either of them could say another word. It was furious, and it came with shouting. Zayn moved first, swinging the door open. A group of villagers stood outside, lanterns held high, voices angry and urgent. At the front was old Matsi Okafor, the elder whose voice still held weight in the village's unspoken laws. Madu! The elder barked, using the name they knew Zayn by. We need to speak. Now. Adana stepped behind Zayn instinctively. Zayn's voice was calm. What is this about? Matsi Okafor raised a shaking hand. A man in a car came today. Slick suit. Said you are not who you claim to be. Said you lied to this village. That you are some Arab deceiver with money and secrets. Murmurs erupted behind him. Zayn said nothing. Another man stepped forward, younger and louder. You tricked us. Pretended to be poor so you could take one of our women and make her your servant. She is my wife, Zane said. The crowd shouted again. And what kind of marriage is this? The younger man demanded. No family visit. No baby. No respect for our customs. Adana's heart pounded. Zane tried to speak, but the elder cut him off. If you are truly who they say, a billionaire from Qatar, then you brought danger to this village. People are watching us now. Your silence, your lies, have shamed this girl's family. Zane stepped forward. Then let me speak to them. All of them. Tomorrow. No, the elder said. You leave. Tonight, or we will decide for you. Zane looked over the crowd. Men and women he had worked beside, helped during the flood, shared food with. Faces once friendly now looked like stone. They didn't hate him for being rich. They hated him for lying. He closed the door slowly. Adana stood frozen. You have to go, she said. Zane shook his head. I won't leave you. They'll hurt you, she said. Or worse. You saw their faces. I'll fix it. You can't, she said, her voice breaking. Not with money, not with words. You hid who you were, and now they feel betrayed. I did it to protect myself, he whispered. And I believed in you. She sat down hard, the floor shaking under her. Zane knelt before her. I can't undo the lie, but I can leave before it causes more pain, if that's what you want. Adana looked into his eyes, those same eyes she had once called hollow. They weren't hollow now. They were full of fear, regret, and something far more dangerous, love. She took his hand. If you leave, she said, leave on your own terms, not theirs, and come back only when you've decided who you want to be. He nodded. No promises, no poetic goodbye, just understanding. At dawn he was gone. No note, no sound, only the satchel missing from the corner and a pair of sandals left behind, as if to say, I will walk back to you one day. Adana didn't cry. She wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders and sat by the fire. She didn't know if she would ever see him again, but she knew this. The storm had passed, and she was still standing. 2 weeks passed. The silence left by Zane's absence was deeper than the ocean outside her window. Every morning, Adana rose before the sun, swept the house, and walked to the market with her basket tucked beneath her arm. The same people who once whispered behind her back now offered her careful, almost apologetic glances. But no one dared ask. No one dared say his name. And she didn't say it either. Not to anyone. Zane had vanished the same way he arrived, like mist over the water. No letters, no messengers, no promises. Just gone. But he had left behind something far more disruptive than his presence. His truth. The villagers now knew she had been married to a billionaire who had lied to all of them. And though they treated her with a fragile kind of politeness, she was no longer one of them. Not quite. She was the girl who was chosen, the one who had been loved or protected by a man so powerful his name was printed in global news. She hated the attention, but she missed him more. And then, on a dry morning laced with thick orange light, something changed. A jeep arrived. Its tires kicked up dust on the village's only road. The windows tinted, the frame too clean to belong to anyone local. It pulled up just outside the small clearing near the school. A tall man stepped out. Not Zane, but someone who wore money like skin. Thin suit, polished shoes, and an earpiece crackling in Arabic. Adana watched from a distance, arms folded. She wasn't the only one. Children ran to the edge of the square. Adults paused their chores. No one approached the vehicle. Then, from the other side, stepped out a woman. She was stunning, tall, olive-skinned, hair wrapped in a sleek white scarf. Her heels clicked against the stones like she had never touched sand in her life. She scanned the square. "Where's Adana?" she said in crisp English. The crowd murmured. Adana stepped forward, wary. "I'm Adana." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Come with me. We need to talk." "No," Adana said. "You can speak here." The woman hesitated, then gave a tight smile. "Very well. My name is Soraya. I'm Zane's sister." The murmurs became a hush. Adana's blood turned to ice. He has a sister? Soraya nodded. He told me everything. About you. About this mess. Adana stiffened. It wasn't a mess. Wasn't it? Soraya said coolly. My brother disappeared for nearly a year. Then he reappears, married to a stranger with no family name, living in a village where he lies about who he is. Do you think the world didn't notice? Adana stepped closer. What do you want from me? I want to know your price, Soraya said. The words cut like a blade. I'm not for sale, Adana whispered. Everyone is, Soraya replied. Some take it in gold, others in pity. But I'm not here to argue. I'm here to clean up what Zane left behind. You mean me? Yes. Adana's heart raced. Soraya continued. He's being watched by financial boards, competitors, and even royal relatives. You think they'll let him rebuild with a woman who can't even defend herself from a village rumor? Adana's eyes flashed. He told you about me, didn't he? Then you know I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to be his wife, his excuse, or his secret. But you didn't walk away either. Soraya snapped. Adana stood tall. Because I saw the man behind the name. Something you clearly haven't done in years. The two women stared at each other, royalty and resistance, in the middle of cracked earth and old tradition. Then Soraya took a small envelope from her coat and held it out. Inside is a bank card with an offshore account. Enough to give you whatever life you dreamed of before my brother walked into it. You'll sign the paper, quietly disappear, and never contact him again. Adana didn't take it. I don't want his money, she said. Soraya's voice sharpened. You don't have a choice. Do you understand what happens if you stay connected to him? He will lose everything. He's already back in Doha, preparing to face a boardroom coup. And if he fights for you, they'll say he's lost his mind again. Adana's mouth went dry. Don't you love him? Soraya pressed. Yes, she whispered. I do. Then prove it. Protect him from the only thing that could destroy him. What's that? Adana asked, tears threatening to fall. Soraya looked her dead in the eye. You. The wind stirred. Soraya placed the envelope on the bench and walked away without another word. That night, Adana sat alone in the house. She lit a candle. She looked at the card. She stared at the fire, and then at the shawl he had once folded over her shoulders. She remembered the way he held the child during the flood. She remembered his silence on their wedding night, not of coldness, but respect. She remembered the first time he smiled when she asked about his mother. Zane had never asked her to choose, but now she had to. In Doha, Zane stood at the balcony of a towering glass building overlooking the marina. The city below was pulsing, lights like veins, cars like blood cells. His phone vibrated again with another message from his legal advisor. His re-entry into public life had been violent. Articles, probes, investigations, and now whispers about the girl he'd abandoned in Africa. Adil entered the office behind him. You ready for tomorrow's vote? No, Zane said. You could still win this. Zane didn't answer. His mind was elsewhere, in a mud hut by the ocean, where a girl once whispered, I don't want to be your secret. He didn't care about empires anymore, but he still cared about her. Then his phone buzzed again. An encrypted message. No text, just a photo of an envelope on a bench, and a note underneath it. If you want me to disappear, I will. But if you want me to fight beside you, I'm not afraid. Zane's breath caught in his chest. He turned to Adil. Call a press conference. Adil blinked. Now. Yes, tonight. About what? Zane smiled, wide, unfiltered. About the only woman who ever told me no. The press room in Doha was suffocating with lights and lenses. The air smelled of nervous perfume, sharp cologne, and tension. Reporters from every major news network leaned forward in their seats as Zain al-Nadir, once called the Phantom of Qatar, stepped onto the podium. For a man whose disappearance had sparked boardroom chaos and international speculation, he looked calm. His tailored suit was charcoal gray, his beard trimmed, but his eyes, the eyes of a man who had once walked barefoot along a fishing village's shore, held something new, conviction. Behind him, his legal advisor gave him a nod. The microphones buzzed. Flashes fired. Zane stepped closer to the podium. "I disappeared for 1 year," he said, voice steady. "Not because I was lost, but because I needed to find the parts of myself I had buried under power, ambition, and fear." Murmurs. "I did not go mad. I went human. I lived in a coastal village without electricity. I married a woman the world might call ordinary, but she is the only reason I am standing here sane." Another wave of murmurs, louder now. "I am not ashamed of her. I am not hiding her. I am becoming worthy of her." He paused. "I have chosen to keep my company. I have chosen to return, but I will not return alone." The screen behind him lit up, and there she was, Adana, not the Adana of poverty or pity, but a woman standing in a quiet coastal wind, her shawl wrapped around her like armor, the ocean behind her endless. "This is my wife," Zane said, "and anyone who cannot accept that can walk away." Silence, then a single clap, then another, and then the room erupted, but it hadn't begun that way. A week before, Adana stood on the beach, her eyes scanning the waves. She had sent the photo. She hadn't received an answer until that moment. The boat was simple, long, low, old paint chipping off edges. But the man who stepped off it wore no disguise. Zane walked toward her, not in sandals, not in secrecy, but in full sunlight. He wore the suit she had seen only in photos. But beneath it, he was still the man who once mended nets and stirred her stew. He stopped in front of her, barely a meter between them. "I told them everything," he said. "I know," she whispered. "I thought they would destroy me." "They might still try," she said. He looked at her, eyes full. "But I don't care." Adana took a shaky breath. "Then what now?" Zane took her hands, the ocean swirling behind him. "Then we stop pretending we're from different worlds. I'm tired of watching my life from a glass tower. I want to build something I can touch. And me? You are the only real thing I've ever had." Tears burned at the corner of her eyes. "You never asked me what I wanted." "I'm asking now," he said. "Do you want to come with me? Not as a trophy, not hidden, but as my wife. Visible, powerful, yourself." She looked up at him, her voice soft but certain. "I want to teach." He smiled. "Then we'll build a school. I want my name on the wall." "Done." "I want to walk into a room and not have people ask if I was a girl you married out of guilt. They'll ask how I was lucky enough that you said yes." She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks, and in that sound, Zane heard freedom. He kissed her forehead, not as apology, as promise. 6 months later, the Al Nadir Foundation launched a literacy program for young girls across coastal West Africa. Its director, Adana E. Al Nadir, stood before a crowd of diplomats and students, wearing a dress stitched by women from her own village. Her voice was clear, unwavering. "We are not here to save girls. We are here to remind them they were never broken." Her husband sat in the front row, eyes fixed on her like she was the only light in the room. And, in a way, she was back in her village. Stories began to change. They no longer whispered about the girl who had been bought. They told tales of the girl who made a king kneel. Children played near the shore pretending to read books like Madame Adana. Girls pointed at photos and said, "One day, I'll wear glasses and run a school too." Her mother received a handwritten letter every week. Her father's grave had fresh flowers now, and every time she visited, she whispered the same thing. "You told me to survive. I did better." At home in Doha, their bedroom was filled with small signs of her: a scarf draped over a chair, a basket of local soaps, a journal on the windowsill. She didn't ask to erase his world. She just took up space in it, and it transformed. Zane still chaired the board. But now, when he made decisions, he asked himself, would she be proud of this? Sometimes, when the night was quiet and they lay side by side, he would trace the lines of her hand and say, "I still don't know how you did it." She would smile into the darkness. "I didn't do anything." "You stayed," he'd say, and she would answer, "So, did you?" They traveled. They argued. They laughed. They built. They grew. Not perfectly, but truthfully. One night, As they walk along the private beach outside their home, Zane looked at the stars and said, "I still think about that candle." She raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" "The night I told you everything. You looked at me like I dropped a planet in your lap." She chuckled. "You kind of did." "I was terrified." "I know." He stopped walking. "I never told you the moment I fell in love with you." She turned. "When?" He touched her cheek. "The moment you didn't run." She leaned into him. "Then it's my turn," she said. "I fell in love when you finally stopped." "Stopped what?" "Hiding." They kissed beneath the stars. And for the first time, they knew their story didn't begin with a lie. It began with a choice. And every day after, they chose again, not because it was easy, but because love, real love, doesn't need palaces. It needs truth. And they had it now, forever.